I've long been peeved by, I don't know if it's an attempt or it's just people speaking their mind, and because some people are led by others who are influential, they also become of that same mind, and then a perspective begins taking root that I believe is dangerous. We here in the media, we have to provide clarity, we have to provide perspective, we have to provide context, and we have to give information that allows our listeners to understand things firstly, and then beyond understanding to form an opinion. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the narrative that attaches itself to conversations about the level of employment in the country, the level of unemployment in the country, and whether or not the numbers indicate a government doing well. May I say that the measure of unemployment has not changed in the independent history of Jamaica, save and except for improvements in data collection and data treatment, but it's the same stencil that is used to drop the elements in and produce the results. It's not as if there were administrations who were disadvantaged because the thing was measured in a way that shows them up as doing inferior to another administration who benefits from unemployment and labor force changes being measured in a different way. I reference a recent study, a survey rather, published by the Gleaner, commissioned by the People's National Party, and done by Market Research Services Limited, my friend Don Anderson, the man who did the poll. And it was conducted between April 4 and 12. Persons 18 years and older, 1,057 respondents. It found 47% believe that things are moving in the right direction, but that 50%, it says, found that things were moving in the wrong direction. And of course, when you read in the fine print, most people who believe the country is heading in the wrong direction do so because they speak of high unemployment, especially idle youth, and the high level of youth unemployment. Now, the peeve that I have is with the employment measure, because we make it seem as if don't watch the unemployment number, because that's not telling the true story. Because how can the unemployment number be true when there are 700 and odd thousand people outside the labor force? Because of course the employment and unemployment measures the number of people who are actively looking for work and those who have found a job, those who haven't found a job, and then there are others who aren't looking for jobs any at all. They are not measured. So people say, almost as if it's a caveat, it's a black mark against where the unemployment number is, the fact of so many people being outside the labor force, as if it's proof that the 4 point odd percent record unemployment rate should not be taken for that, because in real terms the situation is bad, because 700 and odd thousand people outside the labor force not looking for jobs don't have jobs. That's rubbish. And it pains me to hear and see sensible people make that argument to criticize the reality of the unemployment numbers. Watch this. Well, I blame the media a lot, because we should do a better job explaining certain things to people so people have fullness of context. When you look at the most recent numbers published by Statin, October 2023, the labor force survey, and you look at what the numbers say, what you see is, from a statistical perspective, a labor situation that is very strong, unprecedented in its health, and indicative of one of the key measures of the movement towards progress being very positive. Notice how I frame that? Because there is no prosperity yet. Prosperity is not a sprint. It's not a 100 meter. You do it in 9 point odd seconds if you're an elite man, 10 point odd seconds if you're an elite woman. This is a long, long walk to freedom, like the one that Nelson Mandela took. And there's an important measure here in the labor force numbers that I want to highlight quickly in the time that we have. Firstly, Jamaica's total population, according to Statin, as at October 2023, was 2.7 million. Of that, the labor force was 1,377,600. So 1.377 million people in the Jamaican labor force. The employed labor force, meaning the number of people in the labor force who have a work, 1,320,000. Recall that the labor force is 1.377 million. The number of people in the labor force who are employed, 1.32 million. The unemployed labor force, meaning the people in the labor force who are looking for work but can't find none, 57,300. So out of 1,377,600 people as at October 2023 who were looking for a job, only 57,300 never had a job. And this is the big number now. The number that they use to beat the administration. The number of people outside the labor force, 724,600, and people say, aha, look at that number. That number proves that the unemployment situation is bad. And the record low 4% employment rate is not the right thing you should be looking at. And I say rubbish. Here's why. There's a thing, Tana, called the employment to population ratio. What it measures, it's a macroeconomic statistic. I could have recited the definition from my head, but I wrote it down from the World Bank just to make sure that people have it clear. It's a macroeconomic statistic that measures the percentage of a country's working age population that is currently employed. It says it's a useful metric for labor market analysis and is considered a broad measure of labor employment. Remember what it is? It's called the employment to population ratio. And so, what is the employment to population ratio in the great United States? As of April 5 this year, the employment to population ratio in the great United States was 60.2%. At that mark, it's higher than the long-term average employment to population ratio in the United States, which is 59.24%. This ratio is a percentage of the population that is employed. So the percentage of the US population that is employed, 60.2%. The long-term average of people in the USA who are employed as a percentage of the population, 59.24%. What's the record high employment to population ratio in the United States? That was 64.7%, recorded in April 2000. What's the record low employment to population ratio in the United States? 51.3% in April 2020. Boiling down to gravy now, Tana. In the UK, the great UK, what was the most recent employment to population ratio? That 59.62%. Recall that the US has over 300 million people. The UK has 67 million people. In the UK, employment to population ratio, 59.62%. What is it in Canada? Good old Canada. A population of 39 million people. The employment to population ratio in Canada, 61.65%. Let's go to the Caribbean country that they used to beat up Jamaica all the while. Barbados. What is the employment to population ratio in beautiful Barbados, a country I love so much? In Barbados, as of 2023, the World Bank says the employment to population ratio, 57.1% in a population of about 282,000 people. What is it in Trinidad and Tobago? It's 52.7% in a population of about 1.6 million, which leads you to the inevitable question, Tana. What is the employment to population ratio in Jamaica? Statin says, as at October 2023, the employment to population ratio in Jamaica, 62.8%. Compared to the United States, 60.2%, Jamaica is higher. Compared to the UK, 59.62%, Jamaica is higher. Compared to Canada, 61.65%, Jamaica is higher. Can we get a Barbados? Yes. Compared to Barbados, Jamaica is higher. Barbados is 57.1, Jamaica 62.8. And compared to TNT, Jamaica at 62.8% is higher than TNT's 52.7%. So when we're talking about fullness of context, and we're talking about the number of people who exist outside the labor force, who don't want to work because they say that they're not working for the wages on offer, but because they have the comfort of living in a household where others are working, and so they can carry them on their yite up, as my granny would say. You can carry them on your back. They have the luxury of living in a household where other people are working and earning and carrying the household. So they have the luxury of saying, I'm not working for that. That exists in every country. And I believe that among the things that Statin publishes that we the media must do a better job of reporting and contextualizing is this matter of the employment to population ratio, which shows that as at October 2023, that mark, that measure for Jamaica is higher than the countries that we usually compare ourselves to in the Caribbean and outside. And just for fullness of context, in the 6 reporting periods for the Statin data I have at hand, Jamaica's employment to population ratio never dipped below 60.5%. So I'm just saying, folks, context is everything.